Reaching out to migrants. I am Father Martin Puducherry, a Jesuit belonging to Calcutta province in India. I head the Labour Migration Unit of Indian Social Institute, Bangalore since 2015. I am also coordinator of Global Ignatian Advocacy Network, GIAN, on migration in the Jesuit Conference of South Asia. I did my MSW, Masters in Social Work, from the University of Mumbai, and I submitted my PhD thesis on the topic Exclusion and Vulnerability of Inbound Migrant Workers in Kerala at CMR University, Bangalore. Since 2011, I have been involved in the issues of migrants, especially on their rights, and there are several publications on the related theme. I cordially invite you all to this session on reaching out to migrants in India. These are the four areas we will be dealing in this session: COVID-19 lockdown and exodus of migrants in India, challenges confronted by migrants during COVID-19, reaching out to migrants in exodus, humanity in action, interventions in collaboration with others. This is one of the pictures came during the national lockdown in India in 2020. You can make out how the migrants were started moving out from their own place to go back to their own sources, means from where they had migrated. One, COVID-19 lockdown and exodus of migrants in India. Exodus of over 40 million distressed internal migrants. The COVID-19 national lockdown in India displayed not just a migration, but an exodus of over 40 million. Government of India submitted in Parliament exodus of over 10 million distressed internal migrants. The exodus of the migrants was almost reminiscent of the mass migration between India and Pakistan after the independence in 1947. Migrant was greatest man-made tragedy in India since partition, and the migrant tragedy could have been averted, said historian Ramchandra Guha. COVID-19 policies made clear that in India, some lives matter more than the others. This was predictable, yet not planned for, said economist Jayanti Ghosh. Urban India didn't care about migrant workers till 26 March 2020. Only cares now because it's lost their services, said P. Sainath. The mass exodus of migrants was a sign of failure of governments and lack of preparedness. Migrant workers struggle to survive as pandemic rages. An article written by Ramesh Menon. He said, it took a lockdown for us in India to even recognize that the plight of migrants needs to be addressed. They were faceless and unrecognized. They were unappreciated and even hounded. They were poorly paid and exploited. And he said, in this madness, we are forgetting what over 400 million migrants are going through. It was this silent multitude that kept India's wheels moving before the lockdown. With no signs of normalcy returning soon, their plight is even more precarious. Professor Priya Deshinger of the University of Sussex says that the migrants in India are marginalized, invisible, poorly understood, and not organized. As most of them do not have documents, it makes it even worse. The second area, challenges confronted by migrants during COVID-19. Hundreds of thousands of migrants stranded far from home without employment, shelter, and food, and were forced to walk thousands of miles. Immediately after the declaration of lockdown, migrants realized that they do not belong to the very cities and urban areas where they worked. So they had no choice but to go back to their native places. Why migrants wanted to go back, taking the risk and hardships? That was a question asked by many. These are the three answers I can give to this question. One, most of these migrants work and live alone, far away from their family and relatives. In an uncertain future, it is natural that they want to be home where they can feel safe with their family and relatives. Two, most of these migrants knew that they could not survive long without employment, as they had neither eligibility to access any social security schemes, nor had access to public distribution system at the destinations or where they worked. Three, they realized that they were vulnerable to hostile treatment by the local population immediately after the COVID pandemic broke out. Employers, room owners, civil authorities, and the police during the pandemic lockdown, they will ill-treat them and they will have to face a lot of hostile treatment. Now coming to third area, that is reaching out to migrants in exodus, what I termed as humanity in action. When governments failed, people got into action. And we could see the compassionate India reaching out to migrants, expressing solidarity and giving hope. Migrant crisis prompted civil society, including Jesuits, to get out from their comfort zones and to reach out to the migrants. In many Jesuit provinces, task forces were formed, and in most Jesuits, in collaboration with alumni, students, parishioners, and collaborators, plunged into action at different levels. They were running community kitchen, provide dry ration, cooked food, sanitizers, and masks, financial and medical aid, generated awareness through IEC materials, offered help desk or helpline assistance and counseling, and also provided quarantine spaces, especially in many of the university colleges. Some of the institutions converted their facilities to provide shelter to the stranded migrants. Some of the schools and colleges were opened. The crisis interventions are commendable. Despite the lockdown and demands of social distance, there are reports of Jesuits and their collaborators, including students, accompanying migrants and the poor in their struggle to survive with dignity. The fourth area, interventions in collaboration with others. The emergency helpline for migrants. Connecting the distressed migrants over the phone and offering correct information and providing counseling was one of the important work taken up by the Jesuits organizations or Jesuit education institutions immediately after the lockdown. Assuring safety, stay, and food of the migrants by speaking to room owners, employers, contractors, and government agencies was done through these helpline services. Then, connecting the distressed migrants to the nearby government agencies and service providers to access night shelter facility, providing kits and cooked food. This was also part of the helpline services. These are the two articles I published immediately after the lockdown and the exodus of the migrants began. The first article was the Jesuit magazine called Jeevan, nationally published. The article was published. The second was in Pax Lumina. The article titled was Migrants in India, Strategies for Justice. Stranded Workers Action Network, SWAN, is an initiative by the students of Jesuit-run college called St. Xavier's College in Mumbai. It was connecting relief to workers stranded across India during the COVID-19 lockdown while documenting their experiences. Members of SWAN started receiving distress calls from migrant workers stranded across big cities in India. Their immediate response was to ensure small cash transfers of urgent relief for the stranded migrants. Some of the Jesuit initiatives I have just, especially I put us in working with the migrants in India during this COVID crisis. Migrant Assistance and Information Network, MAIN, in Delhi, what we started in 2021. Jesuit Migrant Service, based in Loyola College, Chennai, it started in 2015. Jivika Migrant Workers Movement, Kalidi, Kerala, it started way back in 2011. I was the one who started this. Labor Migration Unit of Indian Social Institute Bangalore, we started it in 2015. I have been heading this department since then. Jivika Migrant Outreach Services, Calicut, Kerala, is also started some years back. Migrant Laborers Solidarity Center, Bagaicha, Ranchi, where Father Stan Swami had been working. Jesuit Migrant Ministry External, it is working in Tamil Nadu. The migrants, those who workers go and out work in Gulf countries. Swadesh in Goa. Then there is Ashirwad Social Concerns, Bangalore. These are some of the Jesuit initiatives, not all of them. Now, some of the major activities undertaken by these organizations while working with migrants. One, accompanying distressed migrant workers for their rights and entitlements. Organizing migrant workers, giving awareness programs, training sessions, meetings, celebrations organized for the migrants. Help desk for emergency helps in accidents, deaths, wage or labor disputes, legal aid, release of migrants from prisons, those who have been illegally put behind bars, health camps, workshops and seminars, education of the children of migrants and providing night shelters. And finally, networking and collaboration, establishing linkages with organizations at source of migration as well as destinations of migration for what we call it safe migration. According to Global Compact on Migration says for safe, orderly and regular migration. These are some of the major areas where we have been involved. Now, the recent starting of MAIN, that is Migrant Assistance and Information Network at the national level in India by the Jesuits. The goal is accompanying distressed migrants to live with dignity by building a caring humanity. The mission to accompany, serve, and advocate the distressed migrants. These are the three major objectives we have put forward. One, to accompany the migrants for setting up a helpline, which will be credible rallying point as the first point of contact. Two, to serve the migrants by responding to their distress calls and assisting them with various services, primarily through partners, NGOs, networks, and volunteers. Three, to advocate the cause of the migrants to relevant stakeholders by analyzing the distress calls, gaps in service or entitlements, and challenges faced by the migrants. Working with the migrants beyond COVID-19, that was one of our own important publications during the COVID time. And it was published in collaboration with Caritas India and Indo-Global Social Service Society. This is a picture taken at Loyola College in Chennai. This is part of the COVID relief works at St. Joseph's College, Bangalore, which is also a Jesuit-run institution. Relief distribution at St. Xavier's College, Calcutta, in its Ragapur rural campus. Relief distribution to migrant cycle rickshaw pullers in Delhi. This is a news report about relief distribution in Patna, Bihar, by the Jesuit organizations there. This is a picture from the medical camp for the migrants in Islam we conducted in Bangalore. Reaching out to migrants in Islam in Bangalore, especially during the COVID lockdown time, giving relief materials to the migrants in the slum areas. This is one of the sessions we had organizing migrants for their rights in Kerala. As I mentioned, we work in collaboration with the different organizations. One of them is MWSN, Migrant Workers Solidarity Network. This is an initiative by mostly the youngsters, students, and professionals to reach out to the migrants. This is from one of our own sessions we conducted in Bangalore with the migrants. Rosie Mukherjee, one of my staff, is addressing the migrants in this session. This was another session we had with migrants in Islam, where the migrants are involved mostly in waste picking or work as domestic workers. With this, I thank you all of you for listening to me and to be part of this session.